Hilchos Kilayim Perek Chi, the laws of forbidden mixtures, chapter 9. The last couple of days were complicated. The good news is it's over. We're done with the forbidden mixtures of agriculture, of planting. Today we move on. Today and tomorrow, the last two chapters of Hilchos Kilayim deal with other types of forbidden mixtures in the Torah. Because besides for planting, there are other mixtures that are forbidden. Today we deal with the ones relating to animals, and that is the prohibition to crossbreed animals, and also the prohibition to work our fields or any other kind of work with two different species of animals together, as the Rambam will define them. And tomorrow we're going to learn about forbidden mixtures in clothing, what's called shatnez. You're not allowed to have wool and linen mixed together in your clothing. But today the focus is on animals, and we begin. Halacha Aleph, hamarkiv zochar al nekeva she'enei minai. If a person actively crossbreeds a male onto a female of a different species, bein bebehema, bein bechaya uva'oif, whether it's a domesticated animal, a beast, undomesticated animal, or a bird, va'afilu b'minei chaya shebayam, even if you're talking about some of the living beings in the sea. And the Rambam uses the word minei chaya because it refers to things like a seal, things that are not fish, the things that actually mate, even if they live in the sea. You get lashes, biblically, wherever you are. Israel, the diaspora, doesn't matter. Bein ba'aretz, bein b'chutz ha'aretz, whether in Israel or outside of Israel. Shanamar, because it says in the verse, behemtecha loy sarbia kilayim. You shall not crossbreed your animals in a mixed way. That's the prohibition, by the way, not the results of it. Kind of like with the agricultural mixtures. In many cases, even if you plant them, what grows is not forbidden. Same thing over here. It's the act of the crossbreeding, the act of the mating of the two. You incur lashes whether you crossbreed an animal that belongs to you, or a beast or a bird, or an animal, beast, or bird that belongs to a friend. You only get lashes if you actually do the act. You bring the male organ into the female reproductive system, like a paintbrush into a tube. But if you simply raised one animal onto the other, or you aroused them through your voice, but didn't take an active part in the mating, we can't hold you biblically accountable. The rabbis will give you lashes, rabbinic lashes, but not biblical. It's permitted to bring two different species into one barn, one pen. If you observe them mating with each other, you don't have to separate them. Because again, the aveira is, the prohibition is to actively take part in mixing two species that are naturally separate. Unlike when it comes to agricultural mixtures, where you can literally instruct a non-Jew to do it for you, it's forbidden for a Jew to give his animal to an idol-worshipping Gentile to mate them and crossbreed them for him. If somebody transgresses and indeed crossbreeds his animal in a forbidden mixed way, the born hybrid is permitted to derive benefit from it. Not only that, if both parents were kosher animals, it's even permitted to be eaten. As we explained in the laws of forbidden foods, as long as the parents are kosher, the kid is kosher, even if it's a hybrid of different species. Two types of undomesticated animals or domesticated animals that are very similar to each other. Even though they can become pregnant one from the other, and they look similar to each other, since biologically speaking, fundamentally they're two different species, they're considered to be a mixture, and you cannot mate them. Again, like we had with the agricultural mixtures, many different types of seeds or plants that are very similar, but they're forbidden to be mixed with one another. Here too with the animals. What would be an example of such things? A couple of similar families. You have a wolf and a dog. Kelev hakufri imashuol. Kelev hakufri, the Rambam himself translates elsewhere as a hunting dog. I just put a dog here just to make the point. A hunting dog with a fox. A deer with a goat. An ibex with a female sheep. A horse with a mule, even though the mule itself is a hybrid. And a mule with a donkey. And a donkey with a wild donkey. Even though all these 7 pairs are very similar to each other, they are considered to be a forbidden mixture, to be hybrided and crossbreeded with each other. Hey, min sheyesh by midbari v'yishuvi, a type of animal that has what we call a wild and a habitated type, there are two species within one species. One lives out in the wild, one lives more in natural habitats. The wild ox with the ox, one type of stallion with a horse. You can crossbreed them because fundamentally they're one species. One exception, a goose. The goose with the wild goose, Kilayim are forbidden to be mixed, crossbreeded with one another. The avaz bar beitzav mibachutz. Apparently, the two species of goose, where one is testicles are inside its body and one are outside. So they may look like the same species, but they're actually, because of this feature, they're not, and they cannot be crossbreeded. Miklal shehem shnei minin, that implies that there are two types. Vehakoi, the koi is the animal, which we're in doubt about its status. If it's a behema or a chaya, if it's domesticated or non-domesticated, kilayim im hachaya v'im behema. We treat it stringently as both categories. It cannot be crossbreeded with a behema. It cannot be crossbreeded with a chaya. You don't incur lashes because it's a doubt, and we never get lashes for doubtful cases. Halacha vav hayiloidim min hakilayim. When an animal is born from a crossbreeding, the question is, can a hybrid be crossbreeded? Im hayu im min echad. So if its moms were of the same species, mutar laharkivan ze, then you can crossbreed them together. But if their moms were different species, asur laharkivan ze, then the two hybrids cannot be crossbreeded either. To the point that if you did crossbreed them, you get lashes. Similarly, if you took the hybrid and you crossbreeded the hybrid with the species of its mother, loika, you also get lashes. Ketzad, let's describe this with some visuals. What would this look like? Pered she'imay chamor. You have a mule over here whose mom is a donkey. Father was a horse, mom is a donkey. Mutar laharkivai al pirda she'imay chamor. Here you have a female mule that was also born from a mother who was a donkey. These two, since both of their mothers are females and they're donkeys, they can be crossbreeded. Mutar laharkivai al pirda she'imay chamor. You can take this mule and mate it with this mule whose mom was a donkey. But it cannot be hybrided even with its own mother's type, a regular donkey. But if you add this case, this is a mule whose mother is a horse. This mule's mother is a donkey. Since they don't share the same species of the mother, so then it's forbidden to crossbreed it with the mule whose mother is a donkey. The same applies in all similar situations. So if you have two hybrids, you have to look at their mothers. Same species, and the two hybrids are also considered to be the same species. The fichach, therefore, a technical trick. A person who wishes to crossbreed two mules, or he wants to have two mules do work together, as we're about to see. The other type of forbidden mixture with animals is to have two species do work together. You want to know, is this one species or two? Check their ears, check their tail, check their voice. If these three features are similar to each other, you can know for sure that their moms were of the same species and they're permitted to be hybrided or worked together. Anybody who takes two types of animals domesticated, or two types of undomesticated animals, and does work with them together, and one of them was a kosher animal, one of them was a non-kosher animal. You get lashes wherever you are, in Israel or the diaspora. Shenemar, because it says, you cannot do a plowing with an ox and a donkey together. Now, even though usually we say, diber hakosov b'hoive, Torah describes the common case. The Rambam says, since the Torah delineated a kosher animal and a non-kosher animal, that means that from here we learn that whatever mixture it's going to be, there has to be one kosher animal and one non-kosher animal. The Rosh famously argues on this and holds that the law applies to all animals. Two kosher animals, two non-kosher animals, one kosher, one non-kosher makes no difference. The prohibition applies. The reason the Torah says this is just simply, that's the common case. The Rebbe once explained their argument on a deeper level. Why does the Rosh say it applies to all animals and the Rambam says that it does not? And the answer is because The question is, what is the geder, what is the halachic definition of this type of forbidden mixture working with two animals together? Should it be compared to the forbidden mixture of mating or not? According to the Rosh, it's exactly the same thing. The same way if you crossbreed any two species, it's forbidden. So if you crosswork any two species, it's forbidden. But according to the Rambam, there's a big difference between the Kilayim of mating, crossbreeding, and the Kilayim of working together. As the Rebbe explains, who makes the mixture? In order to make a mixture of crossbreeding, let's say, or agricultural mixture, which we're learning about the last couple of days, that takes a person's involvement. There has to be a person who takes two things that are opposite and connects them. But the level to which they mix depends on what kind of mixture he imposes on them. So if we're talking about mating, the Torah describes mating as v'hayu lebasar echad. You become literally one flesh. Hashem made these two species separate species. He wanted each one to be fruitful and multiply according to its kind. You took them and you crossbreeded them to the highest level. You mixed them together, the level of mating. And now a new kilayim, a new hybrid was created. That new hybrid, of course, happens whether it's a kosher animal or a non-kosher animal, or one is kosher and one is not. But when it comes to plowing, the mixture that the person brings together is not such a fundamental one. It's only in relationship to things outside of it. They're plowing together. They're not becoming one. Therefore, according to the Rambam, the mixture needs to involve two animals that are different at their core, even on the outer levels. For example, as some commentaries say, the kosher animal will chew its cud. The non-kosher animal will not. That can cause the non-kosher animal pain when it sees its friend constantly eating and it thinks it's being starved. They're different on their outside as well. So because they're different on their outside, that's why the prohibition, even if it's only on an external level, is in force. But once you have two animals that on the outside look the same, they're both kosher, they're both non-kosher, since the whole hybrid being created here is an external one, and there isn't enough differences on their external level, it wouldn't be considered a kilayim. That's just insight from the Rebbe on this Rambam. At any rate, according to the Rambam, when you mix a kosher and non-kosher animal, you get lashes. It says in the verse, no plowing together. Doesn't matter if you're plowing, Torah says plowing, but you can be plowing, you can be planting, having them pull a wagon or a stone, as in this picture. It doesn't matter, or you led them together as one, even by your voice, you get lashes, Torah says together. Any type of togetherness is forbidden. But if a person just attaches them to a wagon, just the attachment isn't the prohibition. You're exempt till you actually pull them or at least lead them to go carrying this weight together. Torah says ox and a donkey, but the truth is it applies to any two animals where one is kosher and one is not. Whether it's a domesticated animal with a domesticated animal, like a pig with a sheep. Or it's two undomesticated animals, like a fallow deer, or some say it's an antelope. Yachmor, there's a debate what the translation is, with an elephant. Or a domesticated kosher animal with an undomesticated non-kosher animal, like a dog and a goat. Or the opposite, the kosher non-domesticated animal, the non-kosher domesticated animal, a deer with a pig. Anything like that. Any combination of kosher and non-kosher, I'll call elu leikim min ha-Torah. For all these, you get lashes biblically. Because the chaya, the undomesticated animals, in the same umbrella as the domesticated one, as we explained in the laws of forbidden foods. But rabbinically, if two types of animals cannot be crossbreeded, it's also rabbinically forbidden to plow with them as one, to lead them as one with your voice, or to actually pull them as one. The rabbis will give you rabbinic lashes if you do. So the whole explanation told you before from the Rebbe only applies to the biblical level. On the rabbinic level, any two mixtures, just for decrees purposes, it's a safeguard thing. You stay away from any two combination of any two animals, kosher or not kosher. It's also forbidden to lead an animal that lives on land together with an animal that lives at sea. Like the goat with the shibut. Shibut, some say, is a regular fish. So imagine you can have a wagon being pulled on the beach by a goat and a fish. Tosfos says that actually shibut is the Eiz Hayam. It's the goat of the sea. This is the comic. But the point is, it's a goat with a goat of the sea. But if you did this, even though it's forbidden, you're going to be exempt. It's not a biblical prohibition. Halacha tes agala shayu meishchenes kilayim. If there was a wagon that was being pulled by a forbidden mixture of two animals, hayeshev ba'agala loika. The person sitting in the wagon also gets lashes. Even though he didn't lead them actively, took no part in leading the animals, but they led him, and he was on the wagon, he gets lashes. Because naturally we know when somebody's sitting in the wagon, the animal can feel the presence, and it will cause him to pull the wagon. If one person was sitting, one person was leading, and they both get lashes. Even if 100 people together led two animals together, working together, they all get lashes. It's only forbidden to make a mixture of two animals, but a person and an animal, domesticated or undomesticated, it's permitted to do work together. A person will plow together with an ox. He'll pull a wagon with a donkey, anything like that. Because it says, an ox and a donkey together. Not a person and a donkey or a person and an ox. You have an animal which was originally consecrated for a sacrifice, then became disqualified. He says, carbon puzzle, disqualified sacrifice. Even though it's one animal, one body, Torah treats it as a split personality, like two bodies. Because it used to be holy. Now it became disqualified. That's like holy and mundane mixed with each other. This one animal is treated as a non-kosher and kosher animal together. Now why non-kosher? It began as kosher. Interestingly, says the Rambam, he points to a verse. It says, if there's that's the word, impure, non-kosher animal, which cannot be brought as a sacrifice to Hashem, this is in the context of the last set of laws in the last book, about Erchin. You promise to give the value of an animal that cannot be brought as a sacrifice. The Torah interprets, the sages interprets this verse to be talking about an animal that was disqualified from being brought as a sacrifice. And it's called tmeya. It's called impure. The same word for non-kosher animal. So from there we can learn that it has a status of a non-kosher animal for these laws of working together. Therefore, going back to this one animal, you have an animal that's been disqualified as a sacrifice. If you plow a field with this one animal, or you crossbreed it, you get lashes on account of forbidden mixtures. This prohibition was received by tradition, directly from Moses on Mount Sinai.